Alright guys, welcome back. So we've invested in a better mic and some lighting, so we hope that it will be better. We'll have something new in the background at some point as well, so thanks for being with us. We hope we're still learning on how to make all these things for you, so bear with us while we're still working on the quality of the video, but the quality of the content is always high because we provide what we know and what we've been through on this channel. So you can make better decisions about your cash flow and create more profit for your business. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ivo. I'm a serial entrepreneur and a business growth specialist. Just in the past 3 years, I've managed to help a fintech company go up market and start selling at a 5K price point. After 9 months, they had a successful 9-figure exit. I've helped a manufacturing brand develop and launch their direct-to-consumer strategy and e-commerce platform. And overnight, they saw a 7% increase in revenue and a 15% increase in their bottom line because direct-to-consumer is much more lucrative. I've also helped a SaaS business that had been stagnant, growing 100% year on year and then stagnated for 6 months and was flat. Start growing again. I came in, I saw that they needed to be aligned. We put into place sales and retention playbooks and aligned everything with product. And for the next 6 months, the company grew 40%, and we had another successful exit after 6 months after that. Just to name a few. So across all of these companies and my previous experiences with my own startups, cash flow has been the thing that helped me understand where money is leaking and where we're making money and which specific levers help you grow the business. That's why we made Smoothin, which is an automated tool that gets into your bank account, gets your bank statement, or you can just upload your bank statement, and with it you get specific insights into what money came in, when, what was the amount, so you know which customers are good customers, which customers are late payers, and which expenses have ballooned, where can you make savings, and you should be going over these things on a regular basis, and I'll be showing you, my task is to show you how to do that on this channel, plus to provide you the tools so you can make your business more profitable every single month. That's why we're here, that's why we're doing this. So come on and join the community. So today we're going over cash flow gaps, or cash flow crunches as some people call them, I think in the States, more than in Europe, and how they can occur, what to watch out for, what kind of scenarios. I think there's about 12 scenarios that we're going to go through today, and keep an eye open for this and discuss this with other people, because these are things that usually you find out the hard way once they've already happened, and then you're in a bad situation. So some of these are anecdotal, I've had them happen to myself, or others are basically where I've seen other companies do it. So it's not my company, so it wasn't as painful, but I still saw these things happen. So let's dig in. All right, so the first one is fairly straightforward, and this is timing mismatches. So timing mismatches might be between when you have to make your expenses, you have to pay your bills, and specific dates and specific times and specific amounts also, because some bills are quarterly, some bills are monthly, some bills are annual. So there's different volumes and different amounts that need to go out of your account. And the mismatches between what you have to pay to keep your business running and basically money coming in, right? So if you've issued invoices and people haven't paid them up yet, or you're waiting for that one big payment for the annual payments, then you might be in a situation where there's just a mismatch of these payments, right? So you gotta keep an eye on when do you expect what money to come in, and when do you expect what expenses to go out, and have a calendar for both. And if you see that there's some clash going on somewhere, you can move things around before it actually happens. That's always a better idea than waiting for the shit to hit the fan. So the second one is kind of the inverse of the first one. This is basically revenue shortfalls. So revenue shortfalls are very specific. So if your expenses stay the same and they've been the same, and let's say all your contracts are on monthly, so you know exactly what you need to spend, but your revenues dropped because you've either lost a big customer, or there's a market downturn, or there's a failed launch for one of the products that you were thinking, and that because of that failed launch, you're missing some specific revenue because you have forecast that is going to generate a certain amount of revenue. It's all to do with, you know, your income not being at the same level and it's dropping for whatever reason. Now, these things could be a surprise, but usually they do send some signals sometimes earlier. So you should keep an eye out on, okay, how much more income and what percentage are you getting more income than you have expenses? And it shouldn't be that you're barely making any margin, because if a tough time comes, if you lose a big customer or anything like that, then you're going to be in big trouble, and you're going to have to either cut some expenses, cut some people, or do something else that's more drastic that you're not going to like and your people are not going to like. So to avoid that, just keep in mind, know where your risks are when it comes to revenue specifically. And if you can, lock in that revenue with customers when they're on a high season, because in high seasons usually people have money. So if you lock people in on annual contracts when it's high season, that's usually a smarter way to go about it. Okay, so the third one is expense overruns, and this is usually when, let's say, your income is stable but your expenses have ballooned, right, for whatever reason. If, let's say, a standard thing is if you have a project going on, if you're like constructing something, or you have a project that's got multiple dependencies and is forecast out into timeframes, then usually these things come spiral out of control. You can look at that just like at any government budget. It doesn't matter where you are. Chinese people, although they build very quickly, they also sometimes go over budget, and the reason is because there's time involved, and the budget that you set out initially is the costs that were there in month one, but as time progresses, things become more expensive. I mean, we've all been through this. We've all felt it, especially nowadays with inflation and these kind of things. So if your materials cost you a certain amount in month one, but you didn't buy them in month one, you bought them in month 9. At month 9, guess what? It might be like plus 10%, so that might have increased your expenses. So what you want to do is you want to keep an eye out for these type of expenses that you don't know exactly how much they're going to be, or if you got a quote, maybe factor in like plus 20% just in case, create some kind of buffers and these kind of things. And if you have other situations, which also could happen with ballooning expenses, you might have a clash of how your business works and how other systems work that provide support to your business. So a very specific example from my own life was CRM. So we had HubSpot as our CRM, and the way HubSpot works is that every single contact that you have in HubSpot, that counts as a payment, right? And I think it was like $1 or €1 or something like that we had to pay for every single contact that we had in the database. And at a certain point, we had automated lists coming in, and our the number of contacts on HubSpot for us grew to 30,000. And I was super surprised the next month when I got a bill for over 30,000. I was like, oh my God, what has happened here? And it was just for keeping, a cold list. All of these people are not our customers. I'd be happy to pay that amount if those were all customers and paying customers, but these were not. These were just cold lists. So sometimes these kind of things can happen. So you have to keep an eye out for everything that, how do they monetize, and how do you monetize, and how do you use those tools to actually grow your business? Sometimes there's a mismatch in that as well. So just keep an eye out for that. All right, so the fourth one is a bit specific to startups, scale-ups, new companies expecting to grow, and these kind of things. Because what do we do to grow? We experiment, right? We invest our money into all kinds of experiments to see which ones generate us revenue, hopefully more than we spent, and the ones that do generate us more revenue than we spent, those are the keepers, and we start growing the business that way, right? Now, that said, there might be situations where a lot of bets go wrong and we lose money on them, right? So you might have invested in, I don't know, let's say you're hiring ahead of revenue, so you've hired 5 people when you should have had only 2 people, but you think you need 5 people, to accommodate growth that you've projected out for the next 6 months. If you're not willing to wait to get the revenue first and then get the customers, because you're worried about actually supporting customers and the customer growth, and then you might get in a situation where if you don't hit that growth level, you're going to be overstretched because you need to pay all of those 5 people no matter what happens, right? Another one might be you've overextended in terms of like marketing spend. So it might be a trade show, or it might be some bigger payments here and there, or like if you have any media company that provides you like discount if you pay for a year up front or something like that. There's a chunk of money at a specific month, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have enough money to pay for everything else. So just keep an eye out for these kind of things, and you should be fine. All right, number 5 is working capital traps. So these are a little bit tricky, and usually these happen once you've become a certain size, and usually these things are covered by financial people together with operations people, so that they can look at specific line items, how quickly some specific products are being sold, so on and so forth. So like where is your capital frozen, and where do you have liquidity issues, and what can you do to actually mitigate that and have liquidity if you need to sell something very quickly, or if you need to get money in to one of your investments or other projects, or just to grow the business in general. So usually this is handled, like I said, by financial people. But if you don't have a financial person, and you've only got your standard setup that you had in the beginning, which is you're the owner, you have your bookkeeper or accountant, or you have both, and they work between themselves, these people are not going to do that. These are purely reporting type of people that give you the data for you to make the decision. What I'm talking about here is somebody that's going to look at it separately, understand, okay, what's happening with the business, what's happening with our inventory, what's happening with all our equipment that we have, what's happening with our fleet, all of these things, where money is caught up and it's stuck in a specific, for specific capital requirements, going against each line, understanding exactly what's happening with them, when are things ending, when are you going to have next requirements for specific finances, and that should be done by you, the owner, until you get a financial person in, or you get a fractional CFO or something like that. But until that's in place, you have to keep an eye out for that, to know exactly where product is going to be sitting in. Like if you have inventory sitting in your warehouse, then you're going to have to know that hey, which are the positions that are hot sellers and which ones are not. Because the ones that are not, guess what? They're stuck there. Yeah, you have money stuck in it. If they sell within 12 months, that means you have that money locked in for 12 months and you can't use it for anything else, which makes it very hard for you to grow, right? Because we only have so many resources. Usually resources are limited, especially financial resources. So keep an eye out for that. For some items, if you're selling e-commerce or anything like that, you might want to work on purely pre-sales. So people pre-order them, you order them, and then you ship them out. Or you want to work with pricing policies where that you can, get the dead wood out of your warehouse no matter what happens at a specific price point. So keep an eye out for that. Don't make these mistakes. Don't have too much capital frozen up into specific assets. Even though it looks good on a balance sheet, it might mean you're short on cash for other stuff. All right, so number six are external factors, so external shocks. These things are, you can't control them and you can't really be prepared for them. We just went through the biggest one, I guess, of our lifetimes, or at least we hope so, in COVID, right, with lockdowns and everything like that. Of course, there was some government assistance for most of us out there, but not everybody was so lucky, especially if you look at more developing countries. So at the time I was living in Ukraine, for example, and the only thing that saved me and my business at the time was that we had cash reserves and we were very quick to react, right? We didn't wait until like what's going to happen next month, so on and so forth. We just basically said, okay, listen, this is all the money that we have, all the resources that we have. This is the situation. We got together and we understood, okay, this is our plan getting out of this situation. And we cut costs where we could, we renegotiated terms where we could, and we set everything up so that, even if we're going along at 10% of what our revenue level was, we'll still be okay. And that was the approach that we had. Not every company can do that, not at every stage, of course, that's different depending on company to company. And that was the most extreme example that I could give you. But in general, what you should be doing is you should have either insurance, or you should have buffers, or you should have a rainy day fund, right? And then you're golden. And don't wait until everything passes on its own. Be more proactive. Know what's happening with your customer base, so that you know actually where cash flow is going to come in, where you need to spend money, when you need to spend money. That way you can manage these shocks much better. So number seven are financial structure failures, and these are basically when you've either forgot or something has happened with your debit. So you might have gotten to the end of your credit line and your bank doesn't extend that credit line. It actually decreases your credit line. So now you have a problem because you've got a gap, right? So these kind of situations and anything else where you have other financial instruments that are helping you out, either loans or mortgages or leases, you need to keep an eye out for that, because especially if it's a lease of something, you have like a chunk of payment to pay at the end of it, or because you need to buy out that equipment or car or whatever, or you need to have a new deposit for a new car or for a new piece of equipment, right? So keep that in mind. Just have a good understanding of where you have like financial structure issues maybe in the future, or when that question is going to arise, and then you won't be in for a nasty surprise. Number 8, compliance and taxes. So what a lot of us actually do is we underwrite taxes. And what does that mean? That means very specifically that you should be keeping a certain percentage for your tax payments, right? That's what withholding is. So under withholding means that you have, so let's say you've made a sale and you have on that sale, you have sales tax if you're in the US, or let's say VAT if you're in Europe. So it's a certain percentage on the item that you've sold or the service that you provided, right? So let's say if it's a 5% sales tax, 5% of your revenue is reserved to pay for taxes, right? Now, if you don't keep that 5% and you spend it somewhere else, what's going to happen is it's going to accumulate over time, and you're going to get a bill either in a quarter or at the end of the year that comes and it's just like bang for all that period, and it's all of those 5% that you spent somewhere else, it comes in one big chunk, and you're like, oh great, now I'm short on cash, how am I going to pay this off? And what you should be doing, you should be better at keeping these type of reserves, because at the end of the day, actually this is not your money. This was factored in straight away as taxes. You should ideally pay that straight away. The thing is, the government doesn't accept payments on every single payment, right? So you have to do something with it. Now, of course, if you get a crash, if you have a cash flow crunch, or if you're in a difficult position and you have a shortfall in payments, maybe also that's a bucket that you can take it out if you know that you're gonna get paid next month or next week from one of your larger customers. That's fine. But you should have reserves specifically for taxes, so you don't get a bill for taxes that comes out, as a surprise. If you're in Europe, it's also very easy to look at that. Yes, you can look at, compensating. So for example, VAT, if you're, issuing invoices with VAT, also all your expenses come with VAT, so that cancels the other one, right? But the way I approach it, and my recommendation would be, everything that's VAT, pay it 100%. At the end of the year, once you calculate, exactly precisely how much VAT you should get back, it's a nice bonus for the company. And like I said, in any case, every invoice that you issue, it's what your product cost or what your service cost plus the taxes on top of it. So if it's in the EU, it's maybe 20%, 21%, 24%, doesn't matter. Like, depends on the country. But that's extra money, right? And we're always tempted to get a little bit from that extra money. But actually, the way you should, good policy is, I'm not touching that. If I get something from that, great, it's a nice bonus for me, but it's not the end of the world if I don't. Because if your business works purely on optimizing taxes, guess what? You got a shitty business. So, number 9, strategic and operational mistakes. So these are kind of like what we said in number 4, which was investment, but a little bit different. And how is it different? It's different because these are upfront bets where you don't know if they'll work. An investment is something that you know that it will work because it's worked before, right? So if you know a trade show gets you a certain amount of customers, it's a good idea to invest in the trade shows. But the first time you need to do that investment, you have a gut feeling, a hunch, you might have market research, or you might have some competitor that told you this is the place to go to. That's where you're going to get your customers, so on and so forth. But if you don't have proof that it's actually going to work, you might have made a mistake, right? And it might have been a strategic mistake. So the mistake might have been that your competitor went there and he said, yeah, I get a lot of customers there. But if your competitor is the cheapest guy on the trade show, maybe that's why they made money. Whereas if you have a premium product, that might not be the best place to get customers, right? You have to think about where you are placed, where your product is placed in the market, and how you're going to attract customers, right? There's a reason why Rolls-Royce, and I think what other car brand was there? I forget now, but they do not sell at car shows. They sell at plane shows or at boat shows. Why? Because the Rolls-Royce at $500,000, when you're looking all day at jets and streamliners and boats and yachts and these kind of things, it becomes an impulse buy almost, right? So you have to take into consideration where you are, where your product is, what you're doing, and make those bets in a much smarter way. That said, sometimes we get it wrong. Sometimes we get it wrong with the wrong place. If it's a brick and mortar place, we pick the wrong location. We figure out that this foot traffic is not the foot traffic that you actually need, because all of these people are not hungry, for example, and you have a burger place or whatever it may be. You might have chosen the wrong products to start off with. All of these things can be very critical to a business, and I would say it's even more critical when you're starting out. So just be very careful on the bets that you make. Understand, try to figure out, is there a way for you to test a location or test a place out or something like that? Especially if it's the summer months and you're like a brick and mortar place, maybe try to get a license for like a pop-up thing and try a month for, without actually building or renovating any place or anything like that. Like, try out small things, see if there's demand there. You could even go for something like, if you're not a shop, maybe go with flyers locally. Talk to people, invest a little bit more in what's called guerrilla marketing. So actually going there, getting your hands dirty, talking to people, and understanding what's happening locally, and then make the best investments that you can. Okay? So keep in mind, strategic investments make sense, but there are ways to de-risk every single investment that you have and every single strategic decision that you have in the beginning. All right, so we're getting to the back three of these. Number 10 is seasonality and cyclical patterns. So seasonality, any business goes through seasonality, no matter what anybody tells you, even startups that grow, they're going to grow, not like that. They'll be going up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And no matter what anybody tells you, unless you are Santa Claus during Christmas, you are not working and you're not earning money. So unless you're selling toys during Christmas, everybody else is sleeping. If you're a B2B company, you know this better than anybody else. The last 2 weeks of the year are absolutely useless because nobody does anything new. Everybody reflects on their own year and thinks about the future and thinks about maybe their health. That's why we have January and all of these things, and that's why there's a big increase. What happens in January? That's right, everybody gets their gym memberships active again, and everybody starts going to the gym, right? Same thing for any type of business. You have seasonalities, you have your ebbs and flows, you should know what they look like, and you should know how, and you should know how these things affect your business directly. So what I mean by that as well is, if you have a seasonal brand or a seasonal product that you do or seasonal service that you do. So for example, if you have a business that is so let's say your business cleans pools in the summer, right? You have a service that cleans the pools and so on and so forth. The amount of times that customers are going to call you depends on the season, because it depends on how filthy their actual swimming pools become, and that depends on outside factors. How windy is it? How many leaves did they get? Was there a sandstorm? Was there anything else that's, you know, blocking up all these swimming pools? Was there a hazardous leak of somewhere, and like, you know, in a specific area, everybody has to have like specific cleaning of their swimming pools, whatever it may be. Like, there could be a ton of situations that you cannot control, and even if you know that, you know, what is a good season, doesn't mean, like, if you last year you had a good season, doesn't mean that this year you might have as a good season, right? Everybody who's in agriculture knows this. If you are growing anything, one year might have been very good, the next year might be very shitty. Usually it is. These things go in cycles. You need to plan for that ahead. So know where you are in terms of as a business from a seasonality perspective. Hit when it's high, rest when it's low, or restructure when it's low season, and prepare for the next one. That's why we have seasons. You know, in winter you prepare for the summer, and in summer you can relax because all the work that you did previously is paying off, right? So know where you are, know how seasons affect your business specifically, and keep that in mind. All right, number 11 is a bit of a specific one. Not everybody has it, and not everybody, even if they have it, get into these type of issues, and that's specifically investor and board pressure. So if you don't have investors, guess what? This is out of the picture for you. But if you do have investors, or if you have other shareholders, they're also people, and they have other things, you know, happening in their lives, and so on and so forth. And if they have got another business that actually they're, you know, working on a daily basis, and they're like a strategic partner or something like that, guess what? If they have a downturn, or if they want to do something, or something else happens in their life, or whatever, or their partnership breaks up, or whatever it may be, but something external happens to them, they might have a situation where they're like, okay, you know what, I need to sell these shares, and then you have pressure from them to actually sell those shares, and then you have a question of like, okay, who can buy this? Now I have to spend time on this, you know, I have to make reports about this, I have to package it so that somebody can sell it for me, or so that I can go out there and pitch it to others who are going to buy it. Or now you say, actually, you know what, it's going to be a founder buyout, and then you have to go to the bank to get actually money to buy back those shares. You know, all of these type of things, they're taking time out of your day-to-day, and also they're going to cost some kind of money. So if this happens when you're in like a cash crunch, that's not going to look good, and you're going to want to know like what you can do with that up front, right? But the good thing is with shareholders, usually you can have unless the relationship has really, you know, ended in a bad way, and you don't talk to the shareholder anymore, you should be able to have some kind of leeway, and, you know, maybe they'll be willing to pay for some of the documentation, or they might be willing to pay for the audits or something like that. But just have an open discussion. You know, these things aren't always just done in a standard way. Explain what the business needs and what the business needs are, and you should be fine. And last but not least, a lot of the times we overlook this, but these are psychological and behavioral traps. And what are psychological and behavioral traps? Well, the first one could be, you know, the first one is the ostrich effect, which is, I'm not looking into my finances, I'm looking okay, you know, my accountant tells me everything's fine, I trust everybody that's in my company, you know, sales department saying that's fine, you know, accounting saying that everything's fine. But, you know, if you don't keep an eye on cash flow, and if you don't see actually what's happening with your business, nobody else is really going to do that until you get a good financial person. Because also not every financial person is going to do this for you. You need really a good financial person that's a bit of an entrepreneur, and that has a keen eye on understanding how the business is running. Okay, so ostrich effect is a very known one. We do it all the time. You know, this is why a lot of people have a lot of problems, and it's like, you know, you're overdue 60 days, 90 days, 120 days. It's because you've been neglecting that problem, and you've been thinking that, you know, it's going to pass on its own. So don't do that. It's better to head on straight onto your problems, or take your problems head on. And with that, basically keep an eye out for just keep an eye out for yourself, self-reflect as much as you can. Then there's, you know, optimism bias. This is a fallacy for everybody. Everybody thinks that tomorrow is going to be better than today, or than it was yesterday, because you become smarter, you become better, you put in the reps, you know, you should be doing these kind of things. But then life hits you, and you don't know what's happening, And you know, we go through these cycles all the time. So just keep an eye out for that, you know, have 2 or usually 3 scenarios. And what I like to do is the bad scenario, I come up with the bad numbers, and I'm like, what if we cut that even by 50%? You know, like extreme scenarios, and having extreme scenario outcomes and a view on that, like what you would actually do, is sometimes a good idea. And it doesn't cost you much, and at least you know what you're going to deal with if you hit that situation, and you'll be quick about it. You won't be stuck, you know, like a bunny in front of the headlights that can't make a decision and can't run right or left. Okay. Then the other one that's a big one is a sunk cost fallacy. So a sunk cost fallacy basically means, hey, I invested, you know, X amount, I can't stop now. You know, this is how casinos make money, because everybody's like, I'm gonna win, I'm gonna win, I'm gonna win. You know, it's just gonna be like the next one, the next one, the next one. So it's the same kind of thing in business. You know, we get tied up into all kinds of ideas, investments, projects, these kind of things, and we just continue to pour money into it, even though it doesn't really work. So keep an eye out for that as well. It's close to the ostrich effect, but not exactly. You know, it's a dire belief in something, not neglecting something. So these are kind of the things. Then there are other traps to watch out for, like discount addiction. I think Ralph Lauren is a big one for this. You know, nobody buys a Lauren t-shirt or polo shirt or anything like that unless it's discounted, and now they have to basically have a permanent discount on all their products, otherwise people don't buy it. So be very careful about that. Give out specific discounts at specific times if you want to. I'm more of the guy that says, hey, don't give discounts, give like an extra freebie, right? Like, so instead of giving a discount, be like, hey, if you buy at this specific time 3 shirts, we'll give you 1 extra shirt for free. Or something like that as a thank you gift, whatever it may be. But that's not a, you know, money discount. It doesn't connect to the amount that they're going to pay. And the last one is also a little bit specific, but we all have it, and it's lifestyle creep. So lifestyle creep is basically you're used to a certain lifestyle and a certain level of life, and then once, you know, the shit hits the fan, sometimes we're not willing to give away anything from that. It's especially harder as you age, as you start having kids, as you start having families and these kind of things. So, because there's more people involved, and you have to discuss that with everybody, that everybody's lifestyle has to maybe suffer, and that's a very dark and tough discussion to have with anybody. So I don't wish it on anybody, but it can happen. If you do all the things that we discussed before, none of this should happen. If you use the Smoothin tool to know where you are with cash flow, none of this will happen. You'll be proactive. You won't be an ostrich. You won't have your head buried in the sand, and you'll have a nice plan in terms of where you're going to get money, when is it coming in, when is it going out, where's it going out for, which channels, which categories should I be investing more in, what is driving my business forward, and what is actually draining money from my account, what's draining money from my business. And you should cut the draining as much as possible and focus on growing the investment as much as possible. And you know, within the next 12 months, you could be in a completely different situation. And I hope you can do that. Check out the Smoothin tool. It can help you today. And if you like this type of content, please click the like, subscribe buttons, and I'll see you in the next one. I think the next one is going to be talking about, okay, if you've already gotten to the situation, what are the things that you can do to get out of it? So there might be a link somewhere here or here, I don't know, but I'm still getting used to this stuff, so please bear with me. See you in the next one.